Financial freedom starts here. 30/30ths, 30 plus 10 in practice. Financial freedom is not only about money, it is about life. It's about waking up without the feeling that everything you earn slips through your fingers. It is about being able to decide your next steps without the anxiety of being chained to bills, debts, and fear of tomorrow. But let me ask you, if you could choose, would you keep running after what is missing? Or would you build, day by day, a life where there is always more than enough? The 30/30ths, 30 plus 10 method looks simple at first glance. 3 equal blocks of 30% and a smaller block of 10%. But its power lies in that very simplicity. It's a map, a compass that organizes not only your money, but your mind. Because deep down, it is not just about how you spend, it is about how you see yourself. And here is the real provocation. If you could transform your debts into seeds of freedom, what would you plant first? Perhaps an emergency fund? Perhaps the calmness of paying everything on time without interest? Perhaps an investment that grows silently while you sleep? Or perhaps something even deeper, the feeling of no longer living out of excuses, but out of choices. The invisible weight of debt. How many times have you looked at your credit card bill as if it were an enemy? How many nights have you lost imagining quick solutions that never came? And yet, how many times have you promised yourself next month everything changes, and nothing changed? Now imagine, if you could reorganize that chaos into clear and simple blocks, what would happen to your peace of mind? The first 30% of the method is about building. It's the foundation. It's the money that goes straight to what sustains your life. Housing, basic food, essential transport, no luxury, no excess. Just what keeps you standing, because if the base is not solid, everything else collapses. So let me ask, if you could strip your life down to the essential, what would really remain? The second block, protect. The second 30% is about protection. This is where you create a shield against the unexpected. It's the money that goes to insurance, health, emergency savings. It's the cushion that prevents every fall from becoming a disaster. But think, if you could wake up tomorrow knowing no crisis could destroy your peace, how would you live differently today? Most people live like tightrope walkers. Any wind knocks them down. The car breaks down. There goes the credit card. An illness appears. There goes the savings. But with protection, life stops being about survival. It begins to be about planning. Expand. The third 30% is about expansion. This is where growth comes in. Investments, education, businesses that may bring more in the future. It is the part where you plant in order to harvest later. And here asks the provocative question. If you could guarantee that every dollar spent today would multiply tomorrow, where would you invest first? Some would say stocks, others, real estate, others still, knowledge. The real answer is personal, But one thing is certain. Without expansion, life stands still. The last 10%, meaning, And finally, the plus 10%, the most underestimated piece, is what gives meaning. This is the money reserved for what makes your heart beat faster, experiences, memories, moments. So let me ask you, if you could use part of your income not to pay bills, but to create stories, what memory would you choose to live first? Maybe a trip, maybe a special dinner, maybe a simple gift for someone you love. The point is not the cost, but the meaning. It's here that money stops being currency and becomes life, the illusion of waiting. How many times have you told yourself, when I earn more, I'll start managing my money? How many times have you postponed simple decisions because you believed the solution was far in the future? But what if that future never comes? If you could start now, even with little, what would you stop postponing? The 30/30ths, 30 plus 10 method doesn't ask you to be rich to begin. It only asks you to be disciplined, because what changes your life is not how much you earn, but how much you organize. The invisible mirror. Money is like a mirror. It reflects who you are. If you are anxious, it runs away fast. If you are disciplined, it grows silently. So let me ask you something you may never have asked yourself. If you could look at your bank account and see not numbers, but the reflection of your choices, what would you see today? Maybe fear, maybe regret, maybe pride, maybe nothing but survival. But imagine if a year from now, you could look again and see freedom, the beginning of the journey. Everything begins with a decision. Not tomorrow, not later, now, okay? And the decision is simple. Keep living the same way or try a new path. So I leave you with this. If you could change your financial life in 30 days, would you start today? That is the provocation of 30/30ths. 30 plus 10. It's not magic. It's not a promise of instant wealth. It's practice, discipline, clarity. It's the art of giving the right destination to every dollar instead of letting it slip away. And in the end, the question that echoes is always the same. If you could live without fear of money, but with it working for you, what would you do differently from now on? Everything begins with a decision. It's not tomorrow, not later, now. And the decision is simple. Keep living the same way or try a new path. So, I'll leave you with this. If you could change your financial life in 30 days, would you start today? That is the provocation of 30/30ths. 30 plus 10. It's not magic. It's not a promise of instant wealth. It's practice, discipline, clarity. It's the art of giving the right destination to every dollar instead of letting it slip away. And in the end, the question that echoes is always the same. If you could live without fear of money, but with it working for you, what would you do differently from now on? What would change if you could? Most people talk about financial freedom as if it were a distant prize, reserved only for a chosen few. But the truth is that freedom doesn't just appear one day. It is built in silence, through repetition, through practice. The 30/30ths, 30 plus 10 method is almost like a lens. It doesn't just organize your money. It exposes the illusions you create for yourself. How many times have you convinced yourself that you needed to buy something, only to realize later that it wasn't essential? How many times have you thought, I can't save anything, but at the end of the month saw expenses that could have been cut without pain? And here lies the challenge. If you could see, with absolute clarity, all the tiny leaks in your money, what would you cut first? The hidden power of habit. Many believe that financial transformation comes from big decisions, okay? But most of the time, it is hidden inside the small ones. That daily coffee that costs more than it seems. The subscription you don't even use. The installment that looks harmless but multiplies silently. Now imagine if you could replace one single habit of consumption with one single habit of construction. How much would your life change in a year? Simple and brutal, because every small escape adds up, but so does every small act of discipline. Building is planting. The first block, the 30% that builds, is often underestimated. People think paying rent or buying food isn't building, but it is. Every bill paid on time is a brick that sustains your freedom. So ask yourself, if you could see your life as a house being built, with every payment as a brick, would you still insist on buying windows of luxury before finishing the walls? Building is about prioritizing. It's not glamorous, it's not exciting, but it's what keeps the structure standing. Protecting is breathing. The second 30% protecting is perhaps the most neglected part of financial life, because no one likes to think about accidents, illnesses, or crises. But life doesn't ask if you are ready. It simply happens. So here is a provocation. If you could go through any crisis, knowing it wouldn't destroy your peace, how differently would you live today? Having protection means having breath. It's waking up with oxygen in your lungs, knowing you don't need to fear every curve on the road. Expanding is choosing tomorrow. The third 30%, expanding, is where hope lives. Because without expansion, tomorrow will always be the same as today. And living without growth is nothing more than repeating yourself. Now ask yourself, if you could guarantee that your future self would live lighter, what would you be willing to give up today? That is the invisible equation. Every sacrifice now is a gift later. But how many truly have the courage to let go of something today so they can live better tomorrow? Meaning is not getting lost along the way. The plus 10% meaning is the reminder that life is not just about paying bills. It's about laughing, feeling, creating memories. Without this space, life turns into survival and motivation fades. So let me ask you, if you could use part of your money to give your life meaning instead of only paying for your obligations, what story would you want to write first? Some believe that pleasure is the enemy of discipline. But without pleasure, no discipline lasts. The fear of starting is the greatest enemy of the 30-30s. 30 plus 10 method is not math. It is fear. The fear of admitting that, until now, you never really knew how to handle money. The fear of facing the chaos you yourself created. But what if fear was only an invitation? If you could transform every mistake from your past into wisdom, what would you do differently now? Money, in practice, is a silent teacher. It always shows you where you fail. Okay. The problem is that most people don't want to listen. Time as an ally. Another invisible enemy is impatience. We live in a culture that promises quick wealth, easy money, miraculous shortcuts, but real wealth is made of time. So ask yourself, if you could stop chasing shortcuts and instead trust the process, how much further would you go? Time multiplies discipline. Every month organized is a seed planted. Every year disciplined is a tree growing. Looking back, we all carry a story with money. Some carry scars from impossible debts. Others carry memories of scarcity. And some carry the burden of never having learned how to manage it. So here, ask the question, if you could go back to your childhood and teach that little boy or girl the 30-30th, 30 plus 10 method, how different would your life be now? Maybe everything would have changed. But here is the good news. Your future still can. Looking forward, picture yourself 5 years from now. Do you keep living as you are today, or do you begin something new now? If you could meet your future self and hear one piece of advice, what do you think it would be? Maybe it would be, thank you for starting. Or maybe, why did you wait so long? Okay, the choice is yours. It always has been. Recall, the method is right here. Simple, 30-30th, 30 plus 10. The real question is, will you keep looking at it as theory, or will you try it in practice? And I'll leave you with this reflection. If you could prove to yourself in just 1 month that you are capable of mastering your finances, what would that change in the way you see yourself, the life you could create? What does it really mean to be free? Some believe freedom is never having to work again. Others imagine it as having millions in the bank. But the truth is simpler and deeper. Freedom is choice. It is the ability to decide, without fear, the direction of your own life. So let me ask you, if you could choose between remaining trapped in the cycle of debts and insecurities, or walking a path of clarity and calm, what would you choose today? The invisible cycle. Most people live in a hypnotic pattern. Work, earn, spend, owe, repeat. It is a silent loop that chains them. But imagine for a moment, if you could break that cycle, which chain would you release first? Maybe it would be the credit card debt. Maybe it would be the habit of spending before planning. Maybe it would be the fear of looking at your own bank account. Every chain is unique, but all can be broken through discipline and vision. It's the power of the method. The 30-30 plus 10 method is more than a formula. It is an invitation to reorganize life itself. 30% to build, because you need a solid foundation. 30% to protect, because unexpected storms always come. 30% to expand, because living means growing. 10% to signify, because without meaning, nothing sustains. Now, think about this. If you could apply this rule not only to your money, but to your energy, your time, your relationships, how would your life transform? Maybe you would see that you also need to divide your focus between building, protecting, expanding, and giving meaning. Because money, in the end, only reveals the way you treat your life. The internal confrontation. No method works without discipline, and no discipline lasts without purpose. That's why so many begin, but so few continue. So let me push you. If you could look into the mirror and see the version of yourself who wasted years of opportunity, what would you say? Maybe you'd apologize. Maybe you'd promise to change. Maybe you'd cry. But the truth is this: there is still time. There always is. The future waiting for you. Every month you delay, your future repeats itself. Every decision you postpone keeps life exactly as it is. So think carefully. If you could guarantee a different future simply by starting today, why would you wait any longer? Tomorrow is not guaranteed. Today is. And today can be the very first brick in a future you never imagined possible. The stories you carry. Money is not neutral. It carries stories. The story of fear in your childhood. The story of a salary that never seemed enough. The story of purchases made to fill emptiness. The story of debts you don't even confess to yourself. But here is the real provocation. If you could rewrite your financial story from this very moment, what would the first chapter be? Maybe it would begin with discipline. Maybe with courage. Maybe simply with the decision to never again live chained to the past. The lightness of order. There is a silent peace in knowing where every single dollar goes. In looking at your life and realizing nothing is wasted. Ask yourself, if you could feel that peace every month instead of the anxiety of not knowing how to pay the bills, how much would that be worth to you? It isn't about wealth, it's about lightness. And that lightness belongs not to those who hope for miracles, but to those who choose order. The final provocation. Now that you know the method, the real question is no longer does it work. The real question is, will I apply it, or will I keep postponing? And the reflection that echoes is this: if you could prove to yourself in just 1 month that you can take control of your money, what would that change in the way you live your life? It's a challenge. Here is the practical invitation. Take your income and divide it into blocks. 30% to build your base, 30% to protect your future, 30% to expand your horizons. It's 10% to give meaning to your present. Do this for 30 days and then look back. And now, let me ask you, if you could finish the month with pride instead of regret, how would that feel? The awakening. Financial freedom is not for the lucky. It is for the decided. And you, will you decide, or will you wait? Because in the end, life will always return the same question you've been avoiding. If you could begin right now, why haven't you?